I settled into the familiar wooden chair at my parents' dining table, surrounded by the warm glow of candles and the rich aroma of roasted turkey. Thanksgiving had always been our most sacred family tradition, and tonight felt no different as I looked around at the faces I'd grown up loving. Garrett and Sterling, my younger brothers, sat across from me with unusual grins plastered on their faces, like they were holding on to some delicious secret. My parents, Theodore and Beatrice, had outdone themselves with the feast spread before us. The dining room was decorated with autumn leaves and family photos spanning decades, including one of my grandmother whose antique table we were gathered around. Before we dig in, my mother said, clasping her hands together, let's go around the table and share what we're most grateful for this year. I smiled, settling back in my chair. This was our tradition, one I'd cherished since childhood. I'll start, Mom continued, her voice warm with emotion. I'm grateful for Jasmine, who works so hard at the dental clinic and has always made sure our family stays healthy. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Your support with my diabetes treatment this year has meant everything to us, she said. My heart swelled with warmth. After 5 years as a dental hygienist, hearing Mom acknowledge my contributions still made me feel valued. I'm grateful for the stability Jasmine brings to our family, Dad added, raising his wine glass slightly. Not everyone is blessed with a daughter who puts family first, he said. Garrett nodded enthusiastically. I'm grateful that my big sister helped me out when I had that whole mess with the DUI fine. Sterling chimed in next. I'm grateful for the camera equipment that's finally getting my YouTube channel off the ground. He shot me a meaningful look. Thanks to family support, he said. Then it was my turn. I'm grateful to be able to work in healthcare and help people, I said, my voice catching slightly. And I'm grateful that I can support the people I love most when they need medical care, I added. The table fell quiet for a moment, the weight of family love hanging in the air. That's beautiful, honey, Mom whispered, wiping a tear from her eye. Dad cleared his throat, and suddenly the atmosphere shifted. Actually, speaking of gratitude and family, he said, his tone becoming more formal, your mother and I have something important to share. I felt my stomach tighten, though I couldn't explain why. We've been working with our lawyer to finalize our will, he continued, avoiding my eyes. And we wanted you all to hear this together, as a family, he said. Garrett and Sterling exchanged that same knowing look again. The thing is, Mom said, her voice suddenly careful and measured, we've decided to leave the house, Dad's retirement accounts, and all our assets to the boys. The words hit me like ice water. What? I whispered. You heard right, Sterling said, his tone casual, almost cheerful. Everything goes to us. Garrett leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. The house, the savings, everything. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline, for someone to say this was a cruel joke. But I started, my voice barely audible. Jasmine, sweetie, Mom said, reaching for my hand again, but I pulled it away. You're doing so well on your own, she said. You have a steady job, good benefits, Dad added. The boys are still figuring things out. Garrett's been struggling to find consistent work in construction, Mom explained. And Sterling's creative pursuits need time to develop, she said. The room felt like it was spinning. I thought about the $650 I sent every month for Mom's diabetes medication and doctor visits. The $200 for Dad's blood pressure pills. The $400 family health insurance premium I'd been covering since Dad's early retirement. All the times I'd worked extra shifts to help Garrett pay off gambling debts or cover Sterling's credit card bills for his business investments. So after everything I've done, I said, my voice shaking, after paying for Mom's medical care, Dad's medications, helping with your insurance. Jasmine, don't make this about money, Mom interrupted, her eyes filling with disappointment. The familiar accusation felt like a punch to the gut. It's not about money, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that I've been the one keeping this family financially afloat while you two pursue your dreams. I gestured toward my brothers, I said. Garrett shrugged. Nobody forced you to help. You chose to be the responsible one, Garrett said. Sterling nodded, smirking. Maybe you thought if you paid for enough of Mom's doctor visits, they'd finally see you as the favorite. His words cut through me like a blade. I looked desperately at my parents, waiting for them to defend me, to acknowledge how cruel that statement was. But they sat there in silence, Dad studying his wine glass, Mom fidgeting with her napkin. In that silence, everything became crystal clear. I was the family ATM, nothing more. All right, I said quietly, pushing back from the table. The legs of my chair scraped against the hardwood floor. If that's how you really see me, then I have something to say too, I said. Garrett raised an eyebrow. What's that? I stood up, my heart hammering in my chest. Don't expect another penny from me. Not for medications, not for insurance, not for anything, I said. The shocked expressions around the table almost made me laugh. You want to treat me like I don't matter? Fine. See how well you manage your medical bills without me, I said. I turned toward the door, the scent of turkey and cranberry sauce now making me nauseous. Nobody called my name. Nobody tried to stop me. The only sound was my footsteps echoing through the hallway as I walked out of what I once thought was my home. I walked out into the November evening, the cold air hitting my face like a wake-up call. The house behind me looked the same as always, with its warm yellow windows and welcoming front porch, but I felt like I was seeing it for the first time. This wasn't my sanctuary anymore. It was just a building where people lived who saw me as nothing more than a paycheck. My car felt foreign as I sat behind the wheel, hands shaking as I tried to process what had just happened. The drive to my condo was silent. I couldn't even think about turning on music. My mind was too busy replaying the scene over and over. The way Mom had thanked me for my medical support, then immediately followed it with news that I meant nothing to them. The casual cruelty in Sterling's voice when he suggested I was buying their love. The complete silence from my parents when he said it. Back in my living room, I sank onto my couch and pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. The family WhatsApp group family showed dozens of messages I'd missed. Sterling had already started, well that was dramatic. Garrett said, she'll be back when she cools down. She always comes back. Mom said, I'm so disappointed in her reaction. After everything we've done for her. I stared at the screen, my chest tight with rage. Everything they'd done for me? I opened my banking app and looked at the automatic transfers I'd set up years ago. $650 every month for Mom's diabetes medication and endocrinologist visits. $200 for Dad's blood pressure medication. $400 for the family health insurance that covered all of them. And that wasn't counting the emergency transfers. The $800 I'd sent last month when Garrett needed bail money after his latest DUI. The $1,200 for Sterling's professional camera equipment that was supposed to launch his YouTube career. The $500 for Mom's emergency dental work. I scrolled through months of transfers, each one representing a sacrifice I'd made. Dinners out with friends I'd skipped. The vacation to Europe I'd postponed indefinitely. The new car I desperately needed but couldn't afford. All so they could live comfortably while treating me like their personal ATM. My finger hovered over the cancel recurring payments button. Dad's voice echoed in my head, the boys are still figuring things out. Well, maybe it was time for all of them to figure it out. Without me. I pressed the button. Recurring payments cancelled. The notification felt like the most liberating words I'd ever read. A strange mix of emotions washed over me. Anger at their betrayal. Sadness at losing the family I thought I had. But underneath it all, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years, relief. For the first time in a decade, next month's paycheck would be entirely mine. Sleep was impossible that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through years of memories. All the times I'd worked double shifts to cover their emergencies. The Christmas I'd spent alone because I couldn't afford to fly home after paying for Garrett's court fees. The countless dates I'd cancelled because one of them needed money immediately. I'd told myself it was what family did for each other. But family was supposed to be a two-way street, wasn't it? The next morning, my phone started buzzing at 7 a.m. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. Then again. And again. Finally, I answered. Jasmine, did you cancel the medical payments? Her voice was tight with panic, though she was trying to sound stern. Yes, I did, I said. What do you mean yes? She asked. I mean exactly what I said, Mom. I realized I don't have to do this anymore, I said. Don't have to, she sputtered. Jasmine, what's gotten into you? Family takes care of each other. You know I need those medications, she said. I gripped the phone tighter. Family does take care of each other, Mom. But I'm not family, remember? I'm just the ATM, I said. You're being ridiculous, she snapped. This is about the will, isn't it? You're punishing us because you didn't get your way, she said. I actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. This isn't about getting my way. This is about being treated like I matter. But since I clearly don't, why should I keep paying for your prescriptions? I asked. The silence stretched between us. Ask Garrett and Sterling to help with your medical bills, I continued. I'm sure they'll be happy to step up now that they're inheriting everything, I said. Jasmine Marie, that's enough, she said, using my full name like I was still a child. This isn't the daughter I raised. Those words hit me like a physical blow. You're right, Mom. This isn't the daughter you raised. The daughter you raised was a doormat who gave and gave without expecting anything in return. Well, she's gone. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I could breathe freely. I was no longer their safety net. I was no longer responsible for keeping their world together. I had finally let go, and it felt like the most honest thing I'd done in years. I set my phone down on the coffee table, my hands finally steady. Mom had thrown around all her usual weapons, guilt, accusations of selfishness, claims that I was destroying the family. But this time, those words bounced off me like rain on glass. I'd heard them too many times to count, and they'd lost their power to hurt me. I walked around my condo, really looking at it for the first time in years. The comfortable furniture I'd bought myself. The medical textbooks stacked neatly on the shelf, evidence of my dedication to my career. The framed certificate from dental hygienist school hanging on the wall. This wasn't just a place where I crashed between work shifts and family emergencies. This was my home. My sanctuary. A place where I didn't owe anyone anything. I opened my laptop and pulled up my online banking, scrolling through the automatic payments I'd been making for years. Each line item told a story of sacrifice. The $650 monthly transfer for Mom's diabetes care. The $200 for Dad's blood pressure medications. The $400 family health insurance premium. Emergency transfers to Garrett for his gambling debts and DUI fines. Sterling's credit card payments for his YouTube equipment. One by one, I canceled every single recurring payment. Each confirmation message felt like cutting a chain that had been wrapped around my chest. $650. Cancelled. $200. Cancelled. $400. Cancelled. When I finished, the screen showed a beautiful sight. 0 active recurring payments to my family. For the first time in over a decade, my paycheck would be entirely mine. I leaned back in my chair, expecting to feel pure triumph. But instead, a strange hollowness crept in. I'd spent so many years defining myself as the responsible one, the caretaker, the family problem solver. Without those roles, who was I? I stood up and poured myself a glass of water, looking out the window at the busy street below. People were going about their lives, pursuing their own dreams, taking care of themselves first. When had I forgotten how to do that? My phone buzzed against the table. A WhatsApp message from Sterling. What the hell is wrong with you? Garrett told me you stopped the money transfers. Are you having some kind of breakdown? I read it without replying. Another message appeared from Garrett. You're being a selfish bitch. Don't expect us to forgive you for this. Then Sterling again. Mom's blood sugar is going to spike from the stress you're causing. I hope you're happy. I stared at the messages, waiting for the familiar pang of guilt to hit me. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: clarity. These weren't the words of people who loved me. These were the desperate threats of people who'd lost their ATM. I walked out onto my balcony, breathing in the cool evening air. The city spread out below me, full of possibilities I'd never allowed myself to consider. I had done the right thing. And for the first time in my adult life, I was completely, utterly free. By 6 a.m. the next morning, my phone was already ringing. I didn't need to look at the screen to know it was Mom. I let it ring until it stopped, then ring again. After the fourth call, I finally answered. "Jasmine, what in God's name are you thinking?" She practically screamed before I could even say hello. Her voice was raw with panic and rage. "Why did you cancel the insurance payments? You know I have my endocrinologist appointment next week." I took a slow, deep breath. "Good morning to you too, Mom. Don't you dare get smart with me," she snapped. "I couldn't sleep all night because of what you've done. Do you realize how much my insulin costs without insurance?" She said. "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly. "I've helped enough." "Helped?" She shrieked. "You call abandoning your family helping? We sacrificed everything for you, Jasmine. We put you through school, we supported your dreams, and this is how you repay us?" She said. The familiar guilt trip washed over me, but this time it felt different. Powerless. Sacrificed? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mom, you didn't put me through school. I worked 3 jobs to pay for dental hygienist training myself. And I've been supporting this family financially for 7 years. If anyone's owed repayment, it's me." "You've changed," she said, her voice turning cold and sharp. "Money has corrupted you," she added. "No, Mom," I replied, my voice steadier than I'd ever heard it. "Money corrupted you. You all turned me into your personal bank, and I'm closing that account," I said. The line went quiet for a long moment. Then she hung up without another word. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications from the family WhatsApp group. Garrett said, "Mom's crying because of you. Hope you're proud of yourself." Sterling said, "You're being totally dramatic. We're family, we're supposed to help each other." Garrett again said, "When Mom ends up in the hospital because she can't afford her meds, that's on you." Sterling said, "Don't bother coming to any family events. You're not welcome anymore." I read each message, waiting for the crushing guilt to overwhelm me. Instead, I felt nothing but cold, hard clarity. Not one of them had asked why I was upset. Not one had acknowledged the years of financial support I'd provided. They were just angry that their money source had dried up. Dad called next. I let it ring. He called again. I turned off the ringer and went into my phone settings. One by one, I blocked them all. Garrett, blocked. Sterling, blocked. Mom, blocked. Dad, blocked. When I was finished, I set my phone down and walked to my balcony. The morning air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in years, my apartment was completely silent. No guilt-laden phone calls. No desperate messages begging for money. No family emergencies that somehow always became my financial responsibility. Just peace. Pure, beautiful, liberating peace. 3 weeks of blissful silence had passed. No frantic calls, WhatsApp notifications, or emergency texts asking for money. Then my phone buzzed, "Family meeting tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't be late." The words were cold, demanding. A command, not a request. Part of me wanted to delete it, but maybe they'd had time to think. Maybe they wanted to apologize. Against my better judgment, I decided to go. The living room felt like a courtroom. Garrett and Sterling sat like judges, arms crossed and stone-faced. Dad stood by the mantelpiece, looking disappointed. Mom clutched tissues in her armchair, eyes red and swollen. "Jasmine, I don't recognize you anymore," Mom started, voice shaking. "How much further will you go to destroy this family?" She asked. "What are you talking about?" I asked, caught off guard. Dad stepped forward accusingly. "You've put us in impossible financial straits. Your mother can't afford insulin properly. If you keep this up, she'll end up in the hospital, he said. Something twisted in my chest, but I pushed it down. So now it's my fault Mom is sick? What about all those years I worked overtime for her medical care? I said. Garrett snorted dismissively. There you go again, making everything about money. Do you think the universe revolves around you? Garrett said. Sterling leaned forward with disdain. You have a steady job, benefits, a nice place. Why are you being so petty? You're just throwing a tantrum about the inheritance, Sterling said. Their words hit like physical blows. I'd hoped for understanding, maybe reconciliation. Instead, I faced the same manipulation and lack of accountability. If this is why you asked me here, then we're done, I said, centering myself. I'm not changing my mind, I said. Mom's face went pale. What did you just say? She asked. I stood up, looking around one final time. At family photos that lied about how much they valued me. At people who'd raised me but never truly seen me. I've spent years trying to prove I belonged in this family. But if my only value is as a money source, I don't need this kind of love, I said. Deafening silence followed. Nobody tried to stop me as I walked to the door. Nobody called my name or asked me to stay. I left their house for the last time, knowing I'd never be back. 2 days later, returning from work, I noticed something wrong with my front door. Someone had sprayed industrial foam around the frame and handle, sealing it shut. The hardened foam was thick and deliberate. This was retaliation, not a prank. I pulled out my phone and checked the building's security footage. There was Sterling in a baseball cap and hoodie, methodically sealing my door with expanding foam. The worst part was his smirk as he worked, enjoying every second of his revenge. My hands shook with fury as I called 911. When police arrived, I showed them the security footage. That's definitely vandalism, the officer said. Do you want to press charges? I thought about all the times I'd covered for Sterling's mistakes and sent him money. Yes, I said firmly. I want him prosecuted to the fullest extent. The next morning, Dad called. Jasmine, what the hell have you done? He barked. Sterling got arrested because of you, he said. Sterling vandalized my property, I replied calmly. Actions have consequences. He owes me for repairs, I said. How much? Dad's voice turned calculating. $1,500, I said without hesitation. Are you insane? You're trying to extort your own family. It's not extortion, Dad. It's accountability. Something Sterling never learned because you've made excuses his whole life, I said. The next day, my account showed a $1,500 transfer with Sterling's message, hope you're happy. You're dead to me. I read it and felt nothing. The transaction was complete. And so was my relationship with them. A few days later, my cousin Rachel texted, I'm sorry about what you're going through. Is it true you abandoned your parents when they needed you most? My stomach dropped. Another family friend messaged, your mother is heartbroken. How could you turn your back on them? I opened Facebook and my blood ran cold. Mom had posted an emotional status update painting me as a heartless daughter who'd abandoned her struggling family. The post showed her and Dad looking frail at their kitchen table. Our daughter Jasmine cut off all medical support, leaving her diabetic mother to struggle with healthcare costs, it read. We sacrificed everything for her education. Now she's chosen money over family. Please pray for her heart to soften, it also read. The comments were brutal. Some children forget where they came from. Money corrupts people. Parents give everything and this is the thanks they get. Every detail was twisted. No mention of the inheritance betrayal, years of my financial support, or Sterling vandalizing my home. Just a sob story about a cruel daughter. I sat in my car, feeling sick. Should I stay silent and let them control the narrative? No. I'd been silent too long. I opened Facebook and typed my response. Since my private matters are now public, here's the complete truth, I wrote. I laid out everything. The $650 monthly diabetes payments, $400 insurance premiums, thousands for Dad's medications, emergency money for Garrett's legal troubles and Sterling's failed ventures. 7 years of support, only to be excluded from their will and told I was worthless. I described Sterling's vandalism and the police report. I didn't abandon my family. They made clear I was just a source of income. I'm standing up for myself, I wrote. I hit post. Within an hour, Mom called, her voice venomous. Jasmine, what the hell have you done? I told the truth, I said simply. You destroyed our reputation. She screamed. Your father won't leave the house. Do you know how this makes Garrett and Sterling look? She said. Did you think about how your actions made me look? I shot back. Did you think about me when Sterling destroyed my property? I said. The line went quiet. Then her voice turned ice cold. You're no daughter of mine. If you contact us again, we'll get a restraining order. We're done. She hung up. I waited for crushing sadness to hit. Instead, I felt complete relief. The charade was over. I was free. After I posted the truth on Facebook, my family disappeared completely. No more guilt trip messages, frantic calls, or threats. It was as if I'd been erased from their existence. But instead of loneliness, I felt wonderful freedom. For 7 years, my evenings had been consumed by family financial crises. Now my time was completely my own. I threw myself into work with forgotten energy. When the clinic announced a new patient management system project, I volunteered to lead it. Without constant family emergencies, I could focus entirely on my career. The project was a massive success, improving patient satisfaction by 30%. 3 months later, Dr. Peterson called me into his office. Jasmine, we're promoting you to lead dental hygienist, he said, sliding an envelope across his desk. Your dedication has been extraordinary, he said. The salary increase was more than I'd ever imagined. This success was entirely mine. I didn't have to share it with anyone who saw me as just a paycheck. That weekend, I booked a trip to Italy. 3 weeks in Tuscany, exploring vineyards and taking cooking classes. The old me would have felt guilty about spending money on myself. But clicking a purchase, I felt only excitement. Landing in Florence, I felt reborn. Cobblestone streets, espresso scents, ancient buildings. Everything felt magical. I wandered the Uffizi Gallery, walked along the Arno River, ate gelato for breakfast. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking my phone for family emergencies. One evening at a cafe near Piazza della Signoria, a tall man with warm brown eyes approached. You look like someone truly enjoying Florence, he said. I think I'm falling in love with this city, I replied. Mind if I join you? I'm Dominic, he said. Jasmine, I said. He was an architect from Chicago, studying Renaissance buildings. We talked until the cafe closed about art, architecture, and hidden gelato shops. He didn't ask about my family or why I traveled alone. He was simply interested in who I was in this moment. Would you like to explore together tomorrow? I know places not in guidebooks, he said. I'd love that, I said. The next few days felt like a movie. Dominic showed me hidden courtyards, family restaurants, rooftop terraces with breathtaking views. He never asked what I was running from. He simply accepted me as a woman discovering herself. One night on a terrace overlooking the city, I realized something profound. I'd spent years believing my worth was tied to what I could give others. But here, with this stranger who expected nothing, I felt more valued than ever before. Under Italian stars, I finally understood what it meant to be loved for simply being myself. When I returned from Italy, I felt like a completely different person. The exhausted, heartbroken woman who'd left was gone, replaced by someone confident and free. My condo was no longer just a place to crash between family crises. It was my sanctuary, filled with Florence souvenirs and genuine happiness. The months that followed were the most peaceful I'd ever experienced. I threw myself into work with renewed passion, joined a yoga studio, took Italian classes, and made friends who knew nothing about my family drama. For the first time, my relationships were based on mutual respect, not obligation. 6 months later, reality crept back in. Aunt Patricia texted, "Your parents are struggling. Theodore works night shifts at a warehouse, Beatrice cleans offices. They look terrible." Part of me wanted to feel guilty and rush back to fix everything. But I recognized this as the natural consequence of their choices. They'd relied on me while treating me like an inconvenience, never developing backup plans because they assumed I'd always be there. I finished my coffee without responding. Later, I heard Garrett had been fired for showing up drunk, and Sterling was still chasing his influencer dreams from my parents' basement. Their failures were no longer my emergency. As Christmas approached, I wasn't dreading the holidays for the first time in years. I decided to host a gathering for people who actually mattered. Aunt Cecilia arrived with homemade cookies and the biggest smile. "You're glowing, Jasmine," she said, hugging me warmly. "I'm proud of you for choosing yourself," she said. "You're the only family member who's ever said that," I replied, tears in my eyes. Soon my apartment filled with laughter from coworkers, my yoga instructor, Italian classmates, and neighbors. These people celebrated my success without expecting anything back. They valued my opinions, respected my boundaries, and cared about my happiness. At midnight, I stepped onto my balcony and looked at the city lights. For the first time in my life, I felt complete peace. No anxiety about bills that weren't mine. No guilt about not doing enough for ungrateful people. No fear of calls demanding money. Just pure, beautiful freedom. This was real family, chosen, mutual, built on love rather than obligation. I sat in my armchair, watching the city lights through my window. Cars moved below, people hurried past, but inside my home everything was peaceful. At 29, I'd finally learned the most important lesson. Family isn't always about blood. Real family consists of people who value you, celebrate your success, and support you without expecting anything back. For years, I believed I owed my biological family everything simply because we shared DNA. I convinced myself that if I gave enough, sacrificed enough, they would love me the way I needed. But some people will never see your worth no matter what you do. Theodore and Beatrice made their choice that Thanksgiving night, deciding my financial support meant nothing. Garrett and Sterling showed their true colors every time they demanded money while treating me with contempt. They destroyed our family, but they also gave me an unexpected gift. They forced me to realize I deserved better. My phone sat silent on the table. No calls from people who only contacted me for money. No guilt trip messages or manufactured emergencies. Just beautiful silence. I picked up my tea, letting its warmth spread through me. I once lived for other people's approval. Now I lived for myself. That wasn't selfish. That was freedom. My story reflects a harsh reality. Sometimes those who should love you most take advantage of you worst. We're taught family comes first, but what happens when that dynamic becomes toxic? When your worth is measured only by what you provide financially? Sometimes the bravest thing is walking away. Sometimes protecting yourself means disappointing people who never valued you. Your life belongs to you, and you have every right to live it on your terms.